I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite lorecast on the Citadel.
Welcome to the Mass Effect Lorecast, the podcast where we explore the vast universe of lore behind the Mass Effect games. We'll talk about all the details you may have missed, ask the hard questions, and more. Spectres, welcome back to the Mass Effect Lorecast. This is your host, Tom, or Robots, and I'm here with N7 the Legend. Sam, I feel like you have packed full a box with dynamite, and we're now running around the box with torches.
Is it because of my comments on Ashley?
I think, well, there's that. So there's the last two episodes we did about Ashley, and then there's the fact that today's patron episode. So welcome to all our patrons. Welcome to all the people in chat. We're doing our patron episode for the end of the month, and the topic of today is Team Cayden versus Team Ashley. And you've just packed that thing full of new things for people to be considering and getting opinions all riled up. People are ready to, I don't know, man. We're just running around with sparks, ready to light things on fire.
You know, despite how many times I refuted the Ashley is racist bottom line sentiment and, you know, provided evidence for that as well, I am completely ready to hear Ashley is racist more than once tonight.
It might happen, but we might get lots of other arguments too, because we got two people to consider. We've got different perspectives on each of them. We've got everybody's variations of their playthroughs influencing their opinions, and we've got a full house. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call out everybody's name. I'm going to give everybody a big welcome. Just go through the list. Everybody stays quiet, and then on the count of three, everybody will unmute, and you will say Team Cayden or Team Ashley, and we'll just see what the cacophonous what explodes. We'll see what words stand out from each other, and you guys can shout this out all you want. All right, here we go. We're gonna welcome everybody. We've got Genesis, Turbo Toboggan, Soda, Captain Shanko, Big Bills, Apollo, Mike, and Akron, who happens to be at work right now, which is awesome. We're on his phone while he's working. This is great. So welcome to everybody. All right, everybody unmute. Get ready. Here we go on the count on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Ashley.
That was awesome. I don't know what anybody said. That was great. That was our show. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next week. Did I avoid it all? Did it work, Sam?
It worked. We're through.
Sweet.
We did
it. Yes. Okay. So, all right. I want to see hands. I want to see hands here. I want to get just a general lay of the land. Raise your hand. Who is Team Cayden? 2, 3, 4. Oh, this is going to be split in half. We've got kind of a maybe-ish, but you got to pick one or the other. All right, so that means the rest of you are Team Ashley. This is almost even, guys. This is almost an even split. It may be an even split, depending on where some of these maybes go, right? All right, so I want to hear does anybody feel like they've got like a really, really solid argument? And what I want to do is see what the arguments are for each side, and then see if anybody by the end of the episode changes teams. So that's the perspective I want you guys to use here, is as you're describing the reason why you are pro the team you're for, why that is in a way that you might be able to convince other people to swap. So who would like to? Oh, Apollo, do you want to go first? Apollo's ready.
So I'm Team Ashley. N7 covered so much of why anybody would be Team Ashley already, but I can just throw in a little bit of what I feel like. So what I appreciate so much with Ashley is they gave us a character that at the very beginning you don't like. And I didn't like her at the very beginning. But as I talked to her more and more, I liked her more and more. The reason I saved her in Virmire was simply because she had talked about her family and her sister. And it felt like she had a little sister who kind of depended on her. She didn't need her. She didn't depend on her so much, but this was a little sister who looked up to her, and she'd been looking out for her whole life. So I didn't want to break that bond by killing her letting her die on Virmire. But by the end of Mass Effect 3, I loved Ashley. So I like that BioWare gave me a character that I didn't like, but taught me to love this character. So, and Sam hit on all the reasons why, but that's a big reason for me. Is her redemption. The
character development, the redemption, and even the fact that even at the beginning when she was the least likable, she had this like family connection thing going on that really kind of hit you.
Well, it showed me that she cared about things. It showed me that there was depth to this character, that she was, even though at the beginning she does seem kind of racist, but it showed that she would put others before herself. And I always felt like she would give her life for her sister if it ever came down to it. And that resonated with me, and I was like, I can't sacrifice her. I got to look out for her sister.
Got it. So like these redeemable qualities.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Okay, all right. Who else wants to team up with you on this one? Genesis? I see Genesis.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I also agree that Ashley was not a character that I liked in the beginning. And it took a long time for me to warm up to her. In fact, it took 5 playthroughs in order for me to keep her alive.
Just a few.
Yeah. But when I did, I realized how important a FemShep run keeping Ashley alive was.
Interesting. Okay, because we didn't talk about that a whole lot in our 2 episodes. So yeah, go ahead. Let's dig into this.
So Ashley's commanding officers. Okay. 1, she's got her dad, General Williams, and then she's got the great war hero, General Williams. So those were her 2 male role models to follow after. All of her commanding officers, once she joined the military, were all male. Mm-hmm. And then she finally meets Commander FemShep, a female who has shown I can rise through the ranks, I can hit N7 status, I can become a Spectre, I can become a galaxy-wide known heroine.
Badass.
Yeah.
Badass. Yeah.
Badass.
Yeah.
And I think Ashley needs to see that she doesn't have to be a tomboy. She doesn't have to be a rough and tumble, the sharp shot, she doesn't have to be that. She can allow her femininity to come through, and she can still be the gorgeous badass and not have it diminish her. And I think that my FemShep does that for her.
So it allows her to acknowledge who she really is and not have to be somebody else in order to succeed.
You don't have to hide. Yeah, you don't have to hide the, quote, feminine qualities of expressing your emotions openly, crying at your sister's prayer with your sister at the prayer wall. You don't have to hide that. And so I think, but you can still then sharpshoot a guy 100 meters away with your shotgun. So,
right.
You can be both. And I think that a FemShep keeping Ashley alive all the way through Mass Effect 3 does that.
I like that. I like that perspective. Sam, do you have thoughts on this?
I do. However, I kind of think I can understand why a FemShep and playing with Ashley through all 3 games would foster that character development. But for me, I always felt like she's still who she always was. It's just that the BioWare developers decided to give her a quote unquote glow up. The point of a lot of contention within the Mass Effect community, might I add, specifically the heels. Not sure that that's very Ashley, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of those things that probably will always be debated. Is this something that she was pushing against internally and she finally felt okay with going into, or is this something that was forced upon her by the writing, trying to reach an audience in a way that they weren't reaching before, that kind of thing. And maybe it's both, maybe it's one or the other, I'm sure that's a hotly debated thing. So we've got some good arguments here pro Ashley. Let's get some opening arguments for Team Cayden. Shanko wants to start us off.
All right. Mine has far less to do with character and a whole lot more to do with gameplay. For me, at least, I typically play through Mass Effect 1 as a soldier, so it's really nice to have that extra biotic backing for shields and, and synthetics and all that kind of stuff. So his power set becomes way more useful to you than Ashley's does, especially if you're playing soldier, because if I need tanky, I have Garrison Rex, and then I can bring Cayden along as my biotic. I also, as for characterization, I really enjoy his interaction both with a femshep and a broshep, non-romanced and romanced. I feel like the interpersonal relationships with Cayden and Commander Shepard, especially progressing from Mass Effect 2 into Mass Effect 3, feel like he has stronger interaction overall.
Interesting. Good points. Who wants to piggyback on top of this? Kind of like we did with Ashley. Does anybody else want to take those points and expand on them any? We've got Arcan. Arcan, how's work?
Works great. So I keep Cayden alive for the gameplay. Also because, like in Mass Effect 3, Ashley's skill set is basically the exact same as James. But other than that, I find Cayden's biotic student story to be a bit more compelling, at least to me, than Ashley's family. I understand that, but I guess I'm more of a hard ass when it comes to war because people die and sometimes you have to make decisions. Cayden, I guess, just had a more fruitful outcome for his story arc with students, even though they didn't really follow up on it and they don't really add anything. I felt like in my own headcanon it would have, along with he's just a good Canadian boy.
So you've got a connection there?
Yeah.
Nice. Sam, what is your interpretation of this interpretation of Cayden?
Well, first of all, I want to say that Cayden is by far more preferable as a squad mate in Mass Effect 1. Absolutely. I mean, his decryption, his electronics, the other biotic, crowd control abilities that he has when it comes to gameplay, I don't think that there's any competition. I think that Cayden blows Ashley out of the water there, especially since most players, I think, have some level of combat capability in Mass Effect 1, and now with Legendary Edition allowing you to use any weapon, I can see how that would make Ashley even more obsolete in Mass Effect 1. Anyway, but when it comes to Cayden in terms of a narrative perspective, I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely biased here, but I just feel like Ashley has more of a dynamic background, whereas Cayden has all of his ducks in a row. You know what I mean? He the emotional baggage that he does carry is so he's got it all under control. So it's not a big deal. So I think that makes him a quote unquote less compelling character to a lot of people, but I think that Ashley's narrative, at least for me, it provides a lot more intrigue, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Cloudy Atlas just joined us. Cloudy, welcome. Glad you can make it. Cloudy,
hello.
We're talking Team Cayden versus Team Ashley here. We had everybody raise their hand as to which team they're on. It's split pretty much in half. Where do you lie on this?
I'm Team Cayden. I've never seen Ashley.
All right, so Team Cayden. We've got another Team Cayden. Okay, so this is kind of fun because you just showed up and you didn't hear any of the arguments for either of them so far. We've had two people chime in about pro Ashley. We've had two people chime in about pro Cayden. I'm curious if you don't mind me just kind of putting you on the spot here, without having heard any of the other arguments. Why do you go Cayden over Ashley? Well, in a way that you would try to convince somebody to come over to your side. Like, what would you say for your side of this?
Mine's just more, I feel like it's not really fair because it's more just like I just didn't mesh with Ashley as a person. Like, we're very different people and I just clicked with Cayden more as a person. Like, he's just very like Canadian and agreeable and very nice, and I enjoy his backstory, and he's like he's complex in the sense of he has maintained his baggage and it's not his whole personality, and I like that part. Ashley it's a lot of her backstory. It's about like the trials of her grandfather, and that's like a lot of emotional baggage for her. And I just never really was a big Ashley fan. I'm a little biased. I don't like poetry, so she
Sure,
talks about text
okay.
a lot, and like her topics are pretty heavy. Like the very first time you meet her, it's like one of the first few conversations. She asks about your opinion on God, which is pretty intense for a video game and pretty.
I mean, it's pretty intense if you just meet somebody and that's the first thing you talk about. I mean, that's pretty intense from any standpoint.
Yeah, so it was a very interesting first conversation. I don't hate Ashley. I'm not one of those people who's like, Ashley needs to die. But
Right.
It came down to the choice, and the choice was I picked Cayden.
Interesting. Okay, so it was just more of like a personal connection thing. Does anybody have that for Ashley? I know Sam probably does, but can anybody else argue for that? Okay, so we got Big Bills. Is that how you feel more about Ashley?
So I'm going to preface this with the first time I played Mass Effect was Mass Effect 3, and I romanced Ashley, so I didn't get her whole story. Mm-hmm. Second time I played, when I first played Legendary Edition, I saved Cayden because Ashley rubbed me the wrong way. But the last playthrough, I saved Ashley, and I got the whole story, so I got to see. I'd only seen the end. I got to see the beginning and the middle. As a Southern white male from the Southeast United States, I've grown up with and around very racist family members.
Oof.
But that's all I knew growing up. So I didn't know any different. I didn't know any better until I got to college, and I had to relearn everything.
We talked to chime in real quick. We talked about this on the last episode a good bit, that oftentimes when people are put in situations where they actually get to know other people who they never had the chance of meeting before, they start to realize how much more you have in common with people who are quote unquote different from you than you ever would have expected before you had that situation. Do you feel like you fall into that camp?
Yeah. So I really good, like for me, one of my first jobs in college, I was working at Costco in the meat department, and two of my coworkers were African Muslim.
Wow.
And I grew up in a very Christian,
Caucasian, Christian, kind of
family.
Thing. Yeah.
And I learned really quick that we're not different, not very different at all. And it really threw a wrench into my whole thought process.
That's amazing.
So
that's awesome.
Seeing that with Ashley, it's like, all right, I can see a little bit of myself and her in that point of you get that redemption. You get the redemption, you learned, and you see how you are wrong just with how you were raised. And then it's like, oh, I can be a decent human being. And I actually learned that this crap was wrong, even if you weren't a bad human being outside of your racist thoughts and tendencies.
Right. Well, you just didn't have the opportunity to grow yet.
Yeah.
You're just as a child, it's one of those philosophical things I struggle with a lot, is that in childhood, we make many of the most important decisions that we will of our entire lives, but we're also more ignorant than we will ever be.
Yeah.
And that dilemma of like Sam and I were talking, like everyone's in the middle of their story. If somebody had met you 10 years ago, the you that they met is going to be different than the you they meet now. Hopefully. Yeah. Hopefully we're all continuing to grow. We're not complete until our stories are done. And at that point, then it's just done. Right. So that's a really cool perspective. I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah.
So interesting. So we're getting okay. Let's sum this up so far. We've got people on both sides who are like, hey, I like the character development. I like the stories. I connect with them personally. I can see that I would get along with this person more. We've got a little bit on the side of Cayden for pro gameplay. Does anybody want to argue the pro gameplay side of Ashley? Or is that, do we feel like, for the most part, Cayden wins that fight?
Funny thing, I've never taken either of them on a mission.
Yeah. I typically don't either. Usually I'm picking somebody else. Yeah. Does anybody take Ashley out on missions usually? Is that like a go-to? So no, like across the board, like no Ashley on missions.
So I did for, my first playthrough. Because as many people do, when you have a love interest in the game, you try to bring them as often as you can, because at least my thought process back then was, okay, if I take them on more missions, does that mean I unlock more dialogue? Does that mean that like I
don't know.
advance the romance that way, or maybe the inverse is true? You know, maybe you don't take them out on many missions and your relationship degrades. I wasn't
or maybe
sure.
they're put in danger and then they can't continue the story. Like until you play through it, you don't really know where the boundaries are.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know at all.
Yeah, that's interesting. Soda, you kind of said sort of like you take Ashley out. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I do take Ashley out every once in a while, like when how I usually play Ashley is I usually play her as a character. Like I don't like her as a person at all. Like I just can't connect with her personally. Like if I were to prefer to save some, it would be Cayden. I mostly would usually keep Ashley alive for some of the dialect that you get between certain characters, such as Terra and Tally and some other characters.
Oh, so like the mission banter, like the kind of
yes.
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, that's a different perspective.
Because in I think it's Mass Effect 3, if you have romanced Ashley in Mass Effect 1 and then romanced Tally in Mass Effect 3 and 2 and 3, you'll get when you're on the Geth Dreadnought, you get an option for this a bit of I consider kind of a bit of a confrontation between the two of them. It's like, hey, you stole my guy,
wow,
kind of thing. And I do that, keep her alive for that, because I like seeing that confrontation between the two of them. Because but if I would prefer to keep someone alive, it would be Cayden, because he's just more about duty and he literally offers to sacrifice himself at Vermeer.
Yeah, so that weighs more for you in the equation. I gotcha.
To be fair, both of them advocate for it.
Well, true.
And if you do spare Ashley, she expresses some extreme survivor's guilt. And she says that, damn it, Shepard, I'm paraphrasing here, but she's like, damn it, Shepard, why didn't you let me do it? Why didn't you let me, redeem myself, redeem my family's name? And then Shepard, of course, can reply and say, like, stop trying to be a martyr.
Yeah. Interesting. I love the different perspectives on this, and I love how split our little community here is on this. We're going to continue. If you haven't chimed in, be thinking about what you might be able to say to convince people on the other side of your argument. We've got a lot of explanation for things, but I think we could probably go a little further into this is why you don't want to be on the other person's side. Maybe there's some arguments you can make there. So be thinking about that. But we need to take a quick break, thank our patrons. So we got to thank you guys and the rest of our patrons, and we'll be right back.
Message coming in. Patching it through.
I am sovereign, and this station is mine. I like the sound of that.
So this should be pretty quick. We've got to thank our patrons. We've got a new one, Zachary R., who signed up recently. Welcome, Zachary, to the Patreon. We have 64 current patrons, and we've got some Commander Shepards we need to shout. Coca Shins, Captain Shanko, Kira, Lieutenant Tocino, Pipe Man, and Big Bills. Thank you so much to all of you guys. And some of you guys are here. So thank you so much for being here and chatting with us and hanging out. This is always so fun. If you're looking to help support our show, then go to patreon.com and check out our patreon.com/Mass Effect Lorecast. You can just go to patreon.com and just find somebody else's Patreon if you wanted to, but that's not our show. And then you can get all the different stuff. Go check that stuff out. You've heard this before. I've done this before. Also, if you want to leave a rating and review, then doing that on Apple Podcasts and leaving a rating on Spotify would be extremely helpful for getting the show out there in front of other people. Or just tell your friends. You guys have heard this spiel. All right, we're going to talk more about Cayden versus Ashley. Here we go.
Spit it out, or are you trying to build suspense?
You're so dense, sir. Obviously, I do not know as much about human relationships as I thought.
So, speaking about human relationships, who hasn't gone yet? Who feels like they could bring something that hasn't been said before, or maybe kind of really push something a little bit further? Turbo, I see your hand up.
The way you say push it forward, I don't know if it pushes us forward, but and I'm worried now. Everyone's saying this. I don't know if I'm technically Team Cayden. I like Cayden because of the gameplay, but the reason I always saved him on Vermeer and stuff is because I felt I don't have anything against Ashley. I just like how she gets a redemption part if you sacrifice her for Vermeer. And that's my very shallow explanation, and now I'm worried that I just dropped the ball.
I mean, there's you're not dropping the ball. This is your perspective.
Yeah.
This is the way this plays out. Sam?
And in fact, that's my favorite canon.
I know.
Giving her that redemption like that.
And I used to hate Cayden. It wasn't until Legendary Edition came out, and we were actually on one of the patron chats, and Sam told me he gets better once you learn more about him. That I did a playthrough, and I saved Cayden, and I'm like, I like Cayden now more just because I thought he was just a whiny little all and stuff. Because I always ended up killing him really quick. Yeah. So I didn't learn anything about him, and now I just bonded more with Cayden now, like more of the bromance kind of thing.
He's your bro.
And then I realized by sacrificing her, she gets a redemption of like her family name, and I'm like, that just works so good now. So that's kind of what put me on it.
Well, it sounds like you like both of them. Like that. Like you've got an appreciation of both. Is there one that you definitely side more with? If you had to pick sides.
If I had to pick sides, I have to pick Cayden because, no offense, he's a way better using him in the very beginning when you have low tech thing. You can you use him just especially on that first planet. Just give him all. Just put it all in tech, and you can unlock all the stuff, so you don't miss anything.
So for you, it's the gameplay advantage pushes it over the edge.
Yeah, the gameplay advantage pushed me over edge for Cayden. It's like a balanced thing, and you just put his tech abilities, and it's like, boom.
Got it.
Unevens to scale, but I love both of them. But it's just that I love how the redemption now.
Gotcha. Any thoughts on this? I mean, it sounds like Cayden's got a strong benefit from the gameplay side. Sam, do you think? I know you love Ashley. I know that she holds a very special place in your heart. But what about the gameplay aspect? Does that influence you at all?
No, it does. I mean, I'm much more of a narrative guy over gameplay. Mm-hmm. But if you're more of a gameplay person than a narrative person, then I don't fault you for choosing Cayden whatsoever. At least in Mass Effect 1, because of the reasons like Turbo had just said. He has the decryption skill, the tech skills that come in such handy situations if you're playing a soldier or an adept or a vanguard,
or a higher difficulty level.
Right, or higher difficulty level, and he has a lot of crowd control abilities, which are nice. But I gotta stick, with Ashley, the narrative one. The sacrifice on Vermeer, I was trying to think about it, and I feel like she would like this literary comparison, so I'm sorry for everyone that does not like literature, but I am about to quote Charles Dickens.
I'm not big on poetry either. I'm kind of Team
poetry.
Cloudy here.
It's not poetry. It's not poetry. It's from A Tale of Two Cities. It is a far, far better thing that I do now than any I've ever done. It is a far, far better rest that I go to than any I've ever known. And of course, that line is spoken by Sidney Carton in A Tale of Two Cities, who swaps his place for another man's to be executed. And he's doing it for the woman that he loves because that's the man that she loves. And so the concept there is to take someone else's place who would be doomed as an honorable and noble thing to do, mm-hmm. which it feels like Ashley is doing.
Well, it's I mean, in some ways it's directly related to a Christ-like thing of taking on the punishment for the sins of others to redeem them, that kind of thing. Right. It just kind of plays out in a more modern setting. Yeah, that's interesting. These and those themes are very powerful, by the way. Like whenever we see those in any literature, games or whatever. Who hasn't gone yet? Has everybody chimed in? Mike, you haven't gone. Mike, what do you want to add on to all of this?
So anybody who has heard me talk before will probably not be too terribly surprised that I don't have too strong of an opinion one way or the other. I think that having them both is really, really important. I actually think that the Ashley Cayden choice is maybe the best choice that you have to make in all of the trilogy, just like, I don't know, functionally, storytelling wise, because I've mentioned previously, it's one of the only times that you actually have to make a real choice. If you have enough Paragon or Renegade points as the game progresses, like most of the major decisions, you can kind of maybe think you need it too. Whereas that is one of the few times when you actually do have to make a choice where you are very clearly saving one thing and getting rid of another. If I had to choose, I think Ashley is a little more interesting from a narrative perspective in, what sci-fi is and, sci-fi's function in society. Because I think that something very interesting that I've heard before about sci-fi is that it's a way to take things and make them one step removed to kind of shine a light on things in our actual life.
Yeah.
The
Fantasy and sci-fi both do that. Right.
Right. That's why it's a lot, fantasy and sci-fi, you see a lot of things like racism in there because it's easier to present those things when they are one step removed and make people think about it that way, because it's not hitting too close to home for, people who might be racist and need their minds changed. It's like just removed enough to where they can kind of see it from an outsider looking in and think, maybe I should reconsider these things. And I think Ashley is a good example of that. And one of my favorite moments in the whole trilogy is that there's some point when, if you take her and Tali on the Citadel in Mass Effect 1 and ride the elevators together, Ashley kind of like awkwardly asks Tali, like, basically it's like, I noticed some people being racist to you. Are you okay? She says it a little more tactfully, and Tali says something like, yeah, like you get used to it at some point. But kind of the way Ashley asks that question, you can kind of tell from her tone that like the wheels have started turning in her head. Mm-hmm. And I think that, I'm a real sucker for trying to get everybody together. And why can't we all just get along? And that human and Turian relationship is really fascinating to me. And trying to mend that, I think she's kind of the human representative of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like those moments are cool because it does give a sense of like the gears turning behind the scene, what you actually see.
And as has been mentioned before, I think a universal human experience is having somebody like a racist family member where, you have to tactfully figure out like, okay, how do I show this person that they're wrong and start get them thinking about these things in a way that it will actually change their mind while also trying to prevent them from hating me or something.
Right. Yeah. Where am I able to push those buttons?
I think the earlier points about Ashley's comments to Tali kind of cement that characteristic of Ashley being that, battle-hardened grunt that's like, hey, I'm always going to have your back. You're part of my squad. I got your back. I don't care what, ironically, I don't care what race you are. I don't care what species you are. I got your back, which is so contrary to what she says earlier, with the racist comments about, I don't trust the aliens, I can't tell the aliens apart from the animals. And then she does things like that. And you're like, I think you do. I think you do trust the aliens. So
it's almost like her in-group, the strength of her squad being her in-group is potentially more influential to her worldview than the races and her race being her in-group. Does that make sense? And I think that's probably true to reality, is that like once you have a squad where you can include these people as like, this is my squad. These are the people who I rely on regularly. These are the people who have saved my butt and who I've saved their butts in battle, whether that battle is doing your daily job or whatever. That starts to overshadow this more broad kind of vague sense of an in-group.
Yeah, I agree. And back to an earlier point about Cayden. I liked Cayden playing as Broshep, but that bromance could have been so much better. It felt frosty.
Jen's got her hand up. Jen?
I know what Jen's going to say, but go ahead.
No, all right. If you know what I'm going to say, then I won't say it.
Are you going to bring up the mod?
No.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say that on the opposite side of the argument, that if I were to switch over to Team Cayden, I would say that my Broshep keeps Cayden alive, because I love the Broshep Cayden romance in 3 more than I like the Ashley Femshep Sistermance in 3.
Right. Cismance?
No, not cis.
No, that's not.
That doesn't work.
The same thing. Yeah, no.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe that's part of the problem, that BioWare knew how to write a romance, but they didn't know how to write a sibling mance. I don't know. How would you even? That's not right. No, that's Game of Thrones.
That's totally messed up.
They didn't know how to write a strong friendship.
Right.
Of people of the opposite gender. Or the same gender. Because if you think about it, like, so many of the Paragon dialogue options in Ashley's dialogue tree, if you are Broshep, are romance options. So it's really hard to be a very good friend to Ashley as a male shep without romancing her. And I assume that the same is true for Cayden and Femshep. I wouldn't know, because in Mass Effect 1, when I was playing as Femshep, I did romance Cayden. So...
Oh no, I think BioWare did a good job with Femshep and Liara's friendship.
I agree. I think that they did better with the aliens creating the friendships with them than they did with the humans.
Yeah.
But maybe Garrus, Tally, you can get all of those as really good friendships, no matter what gender your shepherd is.
Do you think they understood their audience, though, that the audience was going to want, like, naturally gravitate more towards those?
Yeah.
I mean, I think most people do. I think a lot of us would say, like, we were way more likely to take the aliens out on missions than we were to take the humans. I mean, I know I am. So maybe that's part of it. So
I think
go ahead, Mike.
if I remember correctly, some of the writers were like totally blindsided by how much people liked Tali and Garrus.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
I heard Patrick Weeks say specifically that the reason that he couldn't romance Tali and Garrus in the first game was that nobody anticipated how thirsty people would be for this faceless woman and this raptor bird man.
Mm-hmm. Raptor bird man, right?
Chicken samurai. Go on.
Chicken samurai. Yeah. But I there's a difference between how much people gravitated towards those two characters as opposed to understanding that a sci-fi audience would much rather be interested in exploring and understanding more about the cool alien races than focusing more on humans, especially in a first or second playthrough. Now, some of the audience is going to play through multiple times, but that's not typically where your concerns are as a developer. Your concerns are mostly on, like, what's your first experience going to be and how's that going to play out? Are people going to like that enough before they even get to the multiple playthroughs? So I wonder if that has something to do with it.
It just feels like the developers and the writers didn't watch Star Trek growing up, and that's just really what it comes down to.
Maybe. Or maybe they purposely avoided some of those things.
Okay, since Mike brought it up, I have to ask the question. How many of us, and be honest, you can show by raise of hands or show hands, and I'll announce the results. But how many of us sacrificed the person that we sacrificed on Vermeer because we didn't want to bang them?
Just from like a sexual like motivation.
Hold on. Wait, I just want to clear my name. I did not bring that up.
You said thirsty, so we're going along that route.
Oh, okay. So I brought up the idea that these games have romances on them.
A very well and documented theory that people are thirsty in these games. Yes.
Fan fiction.
Yeah, exactly. You ever seen Archive of Our Own for Mass Effect? Go ahead and jump in that wormhole.
Yeah. Nobody's raising their hands, I noticed.
Yeah, no one wants to be honest. That's what that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would bang either of them, so therefore that didn't equate into my transaction on who to kill.
Well, there you go.
I'm with Jen in a game. I'll sleep with everybody, so no factor.
Can I
Did you just
jump
say that
in?
you're a Jen in the game?
I said I'm with Jen. I'm with Jen.
I'm a Jen. I'm doing a Jen right now.
The first time I played through Mass Effect 1, I was like 13. I would say that at 13, I saved Cayden because I was romancing him. I would say that now it's way more story driven and gameplay driven. And the romance happens to be extra candy on top.
And see, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was playing at. Not how we would do it now, but if we were being honest, when you first played through the game.
I can speak for myself, and being a heterosexual male, I would much rather be looking at Ashley than looking at Cayden. Even if it's not to the extent of like, yeah, I want to bang her, but just from like a who would I rather have on my screen more often? Yeah, sure.
Even so, it's almost like they wrote Cayden's lines that way. If you sacrifice Cayden on Vermeer as Broshep, because he kind of just sighs and he's like, "Okay, Shepard, I get it." It's kind of sad. You sacrifice Cayden and you're like, "Geez, all right, well that's sad. Mm-hmm. Guess I'll go back to the ship now. Bye, buddy."
Yeah. Well, here I've got a question. As we're kind of getting closer and closer to the end of this episode, here's a fun one. Now, first of all, has anybody changed sides? Has this been enough to convince anybody to pick the opposite side? I didn't think so. Everyone's like, no. All right. Secondly, what would you change about the other team's character that would make you switch sides? So if you're pro Cayden, is there something you would change that would make you pro Ashley? I saw Arkin's hand first, and I know he's at work, so I want to chime in while you get a chance to talk.
So I would just make Ashley's armor more like bulky. Like, I need some heavy armor. I don't need the Alliance regs type stuff. I feel like she would wear something more like James wears, the N7 Defender set, as well as I love the voice actress for Ashley. I've seen her in a lot of other stuff, but man, whenever I hear Ashley talk, it just grates on my ears.
Oh man. So the armor from a aesthetic standpoint or a gameplay standpoint, or both?
For both.
Both. Interesting. Mike, I know you want to chime in with something too.
Yeah, I'll say, so oddly enough, I probably should be on Team Cayden because I actually think he's probably the character that I am most like in the games. Specifically, the phenomenon of being very sarcastic and deadpan to the point that most people who don't know that you're joking. And I feel like they didn't give him enough chances to be as funny as he is. Like there's a lot of times when he'll say something that I feel like alludes to his sense of humor and like how smart he is, but I feel like they don't go into it enough. Like they don't go into his personality, it seems like, as much as they do with other characters.
So getting to expand, I mean, maybe this even connects to the whole like bro friend thing, getting deeper into that side of it could sway your opinion. Interesting. Yes. Cloudy chiming in. Cloudy, I don't like poetry either. It's cool.
Oh, good. There are dozens of us. Okay.
Yes. It's pretentious. You might as well write prose. You can use metaphor and simile in prose. and make it rhyme. It doesn't have whatever. Anyway, go on, Clyde.
Okay, this is my opinion on Ashley. I've seen a lot of clips from her in 3, so I have a rough estimation of her. But if I could change one thing, they did her dirty in 3. I'd get the original writer back. Like the biggest complaint I hear about her is they turned her into a combat Barbie. Like they put her in that stupid foil skirt, and if you read the Mass Effect concept art book, they put her hair down to give her sex appeal. Is verbatim what the book says.
Yeah.
That's just really. Are you kidding me?
That's pretty grimy.
Just like you said earlier, like better armor that's realistic. That's not a tinfoil skirt and thigh-high boots, and maybe don't have her pass out drunk on the floor twice in the 3rd game.
Yeah.
Just a thought. Like,
yeah. Well,
you did her dirty.
It's one of those things that I find funny about these games is that they are so overtly sexual, not just in the fact that you can like romance characters, but like the body armor is super form fitting all the time. And even like the camera, they had to change some of the camera angles on Legendary Edition so that it wasn't on people's butts. You know, like, come on. Like you can't deny that the developers or the writers or whoever was maybe the person managing the team. I don't know whose role this was that made all of these decisions, but there is definitely a bias towards that. And it is a little icky at times, right? Like,
yeah, like I feel bad for like disliking Ashley because of these reasons. Like when she's in the hospital and you visit her, there's a lot of gratuitous, like, why is her chest bandaged? Why is the camera right there kind of shots? And It's just like, this is just disrespectful at this point. Like, you're not even treating her as a person. She's just an object at this point.
Right.
She's a background. Like, she is a background character, but you know what I mean?
Right. She's more visual candy than, yeah.
To do that, like, of all characters to do that to, Ashley, who in Mass Effect 1 tells us, you're not going to ask to see me in a tinfoil miniskirt.
Right. Don't objectify me. And then she gets objectified.
Right.
Yeah.
And then she gets objectified. It feels like a special fuck you from the game company to Ashley.
And I didn't want to see that in 3, so I don't keep her alive because it's too much for me.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Who else wants to chime in? What would you change about the other character to make you be more for them?
So, Kaiden in Mass Effect 1, he gets better later on. But in Mass Effect 1, he's very calm to angry. Like, he doesn't have a wide range of emotion, it feels like.
It's just like binary? Like,
yeah, it's just like up, down,
just
up,
switches.
down. Yeah. And that just annoys me in life in general when I meet somebody who's like calm and then all of a sudden freaks out. I'm like, what in the world's going on with you people?
Because it makes the calm feel like it must be fake some of the time.
Yeah.
Because they're not inching up to the actual level. It's like they're covering over. It's like the Hulk quote of like, I'm always angry, right? Like they're just covering over the anger until all of a sudden they can't anymore, and then all of a sudden it just comes out, right?
Like in Mass Effect 1, he feels fake at times. Like he does feel very, this isn't like, that's not him. Like it's overtly calm,
disingenuous,
and docile, and then all of a sudden like freaks out. He gets better in 2 and 3, but in 1, I just wish he would have been more, I don't know, just not like that, I guess.
Yeah. That does make sense, though, his demeanor being an officer in the military, especially with Shepard being the commanding officer of the ship after Anderson leaves. It would make sense for Cayden why he wouldn't want to put himself in a bad light with the new commanding officer of the ship and, potentially talk too much and speak out of line to Shepard. So from a military point of view, that would make sense. However, I understand what you're saying, that it's a little too level-headed, that you're definitely biting your tongue about some things, and I don't know where to ping you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a fair point. Shanko, did you want to chime in? Uh-oh, we can't hear you. There you are. You just showed up. You just came in.
Yes?
You're good now.
Okay. I think to the point of Cayden kind of coming off as one-dimensional, a lot of his character development is hidden within the romance. So if you chose not to romance him, I can see where a lot of people would miss out on a whole lot of Cayden's backstory and some of the things that make him more interesting. But as far as something that I would change about Ashley to make her more of a character that I would consider saving for future gameplay and future run-throughs through the trilogy, I think the racist overtones were a bit overdone, and then they're just like, okay, now they're gone. I feel like there should have been a couple of conversations or a little bit different framing for that to set it up in a different light.
Like making it more obvious,
it could be more of a character development moment rather than I don't care that you don't trust the aliens. They're a part of the crew, so you kind of have to just deal with it. Because you can choose to put it down kind of hard as a renegade, or you can just be like, I understand your concerns, but we have to work together if you're a Paragon. I didn't jive with that. With Cayden, it's more cut and dry, like, all right, you're the commanding officer. I'm a soldier. I follow orders.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Soda, did you want to chime in? Uh-oh. It's like there's a delay until we can hear people talk. I don't know why that is.
Helps if I unmute my
Oh, there you go. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. We can hear you.
Now I can't hear you guys. What the hell?
Weird.
There we go. Okay.
All right, go ahead.
Now I can't hear you. Just to comment off that last comment, I know. So basically, how Shepard, talks to Ashley about, the concerns about the alien crew, stuff like that. I know that he's not the only person that Shepard does that to. Is Navigator Presley is also quite, in the same area, same boat. He's very distrustful of the crew, and I know Shepard has to do that, talk to him about that, and he ends up, eventually, even after he's dead in Mass Effect 2, spoiler alert, does, see the crew, like the aliens, as pretty much own family. So, I don't know how they would, they could have changed that and put it more into a development of going down the line of throughout the games for Ashley, you actually watch her, not be as ricist. If I'm making that correctly.
I get what you're saying. So I'm echoing through your headphones now, so I don't know if you'll need to mute your mic. But kind of like what Shanka was saying is having these conversations, these moments where those kinds of discussions happen, and they kind of incrementally walk into, realizing that she's growing and making these changes.
Yeah.
You're saying something along the same lines.
I also wouldn't want her telling me her complete story pretty much right out the get-go.
Right. I gotcha. All right. Who else has anything else to share before we wrap this up? Anybody else with any final thoughts on this, or things that you would change with the other team in order to make you potentially switch sides? Nobody else? Oh, wait. Apollo?
I'll go real quick. Yeah. I think for me to switch sides to Cayden, they would just have to make him a more compelling character. Like, I don't dislike Cayden. He's fine, but he's just kind of meh. Like, he's like meatloaf, if you like ground beef and you invited me over to your house for dinner and we're serving meatloaf, I'd be like, okay, I'll eat it. But if you said, hey, what do you want me to make for dinner? I'm never going to say meatloaf, ever.
Sure.
That's Cayden. He's like the meatloaf of the game for me.
I got you. Like, if there wasn't a choice and he was just a default part of the squad, you'd have been like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Cayden just got called the dish that no one ordered.
Oh no.
And in my palate, that would make Cayden coleslaw.
So
I'm gonna start calling him coleslaw Cayden.
I do like the meatloaf thing because then it makes me think of the musician and how I could do anything for love. And then now I just want that to play in the background of every romance scene in the game. That's super weird. Jen, did you want to chime in with something too?
My brain is trying to see like the Jack romance scene with that playing in the background.
But
and
I
how
won't
horrible
do that.
Yeah, no. Wow. But I do think that everybody should experience it one way, or should experience the game both ways. You know, a lot of us, especially in this chat here tonight and listening to the podcast, have played through this game at least the once and are now probably working through their second or 70th playthrough. And if you haven't gone through and picked the other person, I think you should give them a shot just to see how many little things change within the games. I didn't realize that a lot of like, oh, now I actually don't need to go to that part of the ship because the person that I would normally talk to isn't down there anymore. So now one less pit stop to make, you know, little things like that, or little moments of dialogue that change depending on who you pick.
Yeah.
I think it's worth the experience.
Yeah, good point. Solid point. Sam, any last thoughts?
Well, I agree completely there. Until several months ago, I guess close to 1 year ago, when I started, my FimShep playthroughs, actually one playthrough before that, I had never saved Cayden before. So now that I've saved him, I've done both of those things. And at this point, I feel like I'm only cheating myself if I don't play the game differently, no matter how painful or averse to that I might be initially. And I'm on a heavy Renegade playthrough right now. So that has been rewarding in as much as I get to like distance myself from the character, a little bit, and then be like, I can be a total asshole. And sometimes it's hilarious. Other times it's heinous, but I'm already planning another Paragon playthrough after that. That's the good thing, if you're doing a playthrough and you don't really like it, guess what? You can do another playthrough.
Yeah, the game still exists. You can go back and start again.
Exactly.
Right.
So there's that, and then I also just thought the one thing that they could do that would really push me toward being Team Cayden is just make the bromance better, like make it so that Cayden is just as much of a ride or die to Broshep as Garrus is.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet it for everything that we would want to happen, I'm sure doing that isn't always easy as a writer, right? Like sometimes you write stuff and you're like, this is going to be great, and nobody responds to it. And other times you write stuff and people are like, oh, I didn't expect Garrus would be as popular as he became. So yeah, it's nice to be able to want those things, but to actually pull that off is always a little bit harder than it seems. Arkin, did you want to chime in?
I think the only problem with making Cayden another ride or die bromance thing is that it would fall into the same problem of Boba Fett and Mandalorian. The Mandalorian is what we see Boba Fett as, so Boba Fett can no longer be that character. If Cayden were like that ride or die bro, then it would either live in Garrus's shadow, because Garrus has always been the ride or die bro, or it would just it would just be two of the same people almost.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all too similar. Again, it's tough to pull this stuff off as a writer, right? Make everybody feel unique and different, have their own types of relationships, and yet make it work all the way around. Guys, this has been awesome. Thank you for joining. Has anybody changed opinions at all? Have we moved the needle at all? Nobody's moving the needle. Everyone's like, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm staying. Well, so let's how about this question? Have you gained any more appreciation for the other side than you had when we started? Get some nodding. Okay. All right. Hey, communication. It's an amazing thing. This has been awesome. Here, we're going to go back through everybody, and thank you for coming. And if you have some other project you'd like to shout out, something that you're working on, ways people can check out what you're putting out into the world, or just ways that they can reach out if they want to chat, then please let us know. We're going to start with Genesis. Genesis, I know you got stuff.
I do have stuff. I am one half of the Two Girls, One Ship podcast, where we analyze, rate, and review all that the world of video game romances has to offer. We're currently going through the Fallout 4 characters. So come take a listen.
Very cool. And
I know
you're
that
taking part in our charity thing. We've got a Robots Radio Labor Day charity all-day stream coming up on this upcoming Monday, September 5th. And you're going to be a part of this. A lot of our hosts are going to be a part of this. You want to share a little bit about what you're going to be doing?
Yeah, it's a couple of hosts all getting together from Almighty Crit, Witcher Lorecast, the Dragon Age Lorecast, a whole bunch of us. I think I'm missing a few. Oh, and the MCU Lorecast. Yes, we are all getting together, and we are going to be playing 5th Ed D&D live play session. But Teacup is our DM, and he has told us that we are all starting at level 20.
Which is nuts. I've never done that.
Extreme nuts.
That's
and so
crazy.
He's been messaging us the background and stuff, and Toasty and I are going to have so much fun.
Yeah. So all of the money that we raise this upcoming Monday is going to St. Jude's for the kids. We're helping out all the kids. We're trying to raise as much as we can. And the stream will be on twitch.tv/robotsradio. This is my main channel. It's the one that we're going to bring everybody onto. I'm going to be capturing from their streams onto that one. So go follow twitch.tv/robotsradio. Then you'll see where they're streaming as well. You can follow their channels for each individual show because they all have their own channels, and it's going to be awesome. You can donate there, and I hope you guys enjoy it. We'll be starting in the morning. We'll be going all day long. Lots of different streamers. I'll be doing it as well. So go check that out. So awesome, Jen. Turbo, I know usually you're like, yeah, I don't have anything going on, but if you want to reach out, you can reach out on Discord. Is that the same? Yeah, pretty much.
Yes.
He's just nodding his head. Yeah. Cool, man. Thanks for being here. It's good to see you again. Soda, you got anything going on you want to share? Uh-oh, you're muted again. Oh no. I think it's in the, there you go.
Just the usual. Go check out simulatorsanonymous.com, where I tend to hang out in their Discord. Great bunch of guys, enjoy simulator games, and or check them out at Simulators Anonymous on Twitch.
Cool, very cool. Well, thanks for joining us again, Captain Shanko. I know you got stuff. Uh-oh, the voice is catching up. Maybe try talking now.
1, 2, 3.
There you go. For some reason, it doesn't come through right away with you, but now it does.
I'm one half of the MCU Lorecast. We're putting out episodes every Monday covering MCU history, lore, comic books, all that kind of stuff. We're also participating in the charity stream. We're going on at 11 to do some Marvel trivia and a little host Q&A, get to know us a little bit better.
Yeah, that's 11 a.m. Eastern time. So that would be like 10 Central. That would be, 8 Pacific. So, yeah.
So we'll be on there, and you can find us across social media as MCU Lorecast, pretty active on the Discord as well as Captain Shanko. And I'm just playing games, doing the podcast, living life.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us again. Big Bills, you got anything you want to share?
Nope, nothing much going on. Thanks for having me. Have a good week, y'all.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for being here. Apollo.
I'm Apollo. I'm not a creator, so nothing to share there. It's my birthday.
Happy birthday. That's awesome.
Hey, happy birthday, man.
That's great. Well, this is a fun little birthday thing you get to do. That's awesome. Well, thanks for being here. Mike?
I don't have any projects to plug, but if you want some more of me, go listen to the music episode of this very podcast.
There you go. Thanks, Mike. Arkan, this has been very interesting watching you work this whole time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I don't really have any podcasts or anything, but I'm currently writing, I wouldn't say a book, but it's not a short story either. At some point I'll release it somewhere. I might put it on the Discord. But I am looking for someone to just read over it so that I don't sound like a senile lunatic when I publish it.
Yeah. Shanka raised her hand, so you might have someone there. Yeah, you guys should talk. You guys should chat. Well, that's awesome. Share more about that as it gets closer to releasing. Thanks for being here. And then Cloudy Atlas.
Yeah, I'm just in the Robots Radio Discord. I'm Cloudy Atlas, shockingly. And on September the 23rd, I'll be on the Two Girls One Shit podcast.
Sweet.
That's our special guest star for Fallout 4.
Awesome. Well, have fun with that. That sounds like a blast. Sam?
It will be.
Yeah, awesome. Sam, you got anything you want to share before we head out?
Yeah, as always, streaming Sassy Ships Saturdays on Twitch. I am getting toward, the halfway point of Mass Effect 3 with my first FemShep playthrough. So if you haven't caught any of it yet, now is a good time. If you've been keeping up, now is a good time to keep in touch. So still doing that, and going to try to fit in some Thedas Thursdays with my first ever Dragon Age playthrough as well. But yeah, you can find me on Twitch at In7TheLegend, and same handle on Twitter. And by the way, Tom, I've been playing the Morrowind multiplayer mod.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That sounds nuts.
It works better than the Skyrim one.
That's crazy. Can you hit crabs,
seamless.
or are you just still swinging at them?
Yeah, it depends.
Dice rolls.
It depends, but you and I are gonna have to stream that sometime because it's hilarious. So
yeah, that sounds fun. Let me know when you've got some free time. I know your schedule's changed and stuff. I'm trying to stream as often as I can. My streaming schedule is now Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays in the afternoons. So come hang out with me for that stuff. But especially come hang out on Monday, this upcoming Monday, September 5th, for the charity stream. Twitch.tv/robotsradio. Come on over. It's going to be awesome. If this is a success, we're going to do this more often and make this maybe a semi-regular thing, maybe a few times a year. We're trying stuff out, and we're going to see how it goes. So I hope you guys decide to come join us for that. Sam and I will be back next week, but it will be on Friday. Are we going to do a Friday this week? Are we going to skip a week and do a Friday? I don't know. We're switching to Fridays. We'll figure it out. We're going to figure it out. We'll look at our schedules. But streams and recording will now happen on Fridays instead of Mondays. So if it seems like the next episode is a little bit delayed or weird, that's what's up. Don't worry about it. But come join us for the live show on Friday evenings at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. That would be the math. All right, guys, thanks for being here. This has been super fun. I'll see you on the Discord, see you around the internet, and stay safe out there. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the Mass Effect Lorecast. We'd love to hear your opinion and thoughts on the lore of Mass Effect. Reach out to us on Twitter at Mass Effect Cast, or check out the Robots Radio Discord. Also, you can send us an email at masseffectlorecast@gmail.com.